Ladies and gentlemen, there is a deep truth that transcends time, space, and the limitations of the human mind. Nothing is impossible with God. Yet, to truly grasp this, we must first ask, what is preventing us from experiencing the infinite possibilities already present in every moment? As you walk through life, remember this: whenever the mind tells you that something cannot be done, pause, become still, go beyond the mental noise. In that silence, you will hear the gentle whisper of truth. With God, all things are possible. The power of presence and faith is often overlooked in a world that constantly pulls us toward external achievements, distractions, and uncertainties. But if we truly wish to understand why nothing is impossible with God, we must begin by recognizing the power of being fully present in faith. This is not simply believing in an external force that may or may not intervene in our lives. It is about experiencing God as a living presence within us, here and now. Most people live in a state of inner resistance. They worry about the future, regret the past, and feel burdened by circumstances beyond their control. In this state, faith remains only an intellectual idea, something they speak of but do not fully embody. But faith in its truest form is not a mere thought. It is a deep, unwavering trust in the unseen, an inner knowing that there is a higher order working through every moment of life. Faith is not just believing that God can do the impossible. It is the understanding that in the presence of God, impossibility does not exist. To grasp this, we must first understand the significance of presence. Presence is the state of complete awareness, free from the distractions of the mind. When we are present, we are no longer lost in fears about what may happen or regrets about what has already passed. We are here in this moment, fully conscious of life as it unfolds. This is the space where divine power operates. God does not exist in the past or the future, only in the eternal now. When we align ourselves with the present moment, we align ourselves with the very presence of God. Imagine someone trying to accomplish something great, but feeling overwhelmed by fear and doubt. The mind constantly tells them, "This is too difficult," or "I am not good enough." These thoughts seem real because they are deeply ingrained. But are they the truth? The moment this person steps into full awareness and quiets the mental noise, something extraordinary happens. They become connected to a power greater than themselves. In that stillness, the impossible begins to shift. New ideas arise. Strength that seemed absent emerges. Obstacles dissolve not because the external world has changed, but because they have changed. They are no longer trapped in the illusion of limitation. Faith, then, is not blind belief. It is a conscious surrender to divine intelligence. It is the realization that beyond all appearances, there is a force that holds everything together, a force that is not separate from us, but is the very essence of who we are. When we embody this truth, when we let go of resistance and open ourselves fully to the present moment, we allow miracles to unfold effortlessly. This does not mean that difficulties will never arise. Life, by its nature, brings challenges. But when faith is deeply rooted in presence, even challenges become part of a higher design. Instead of seeing difficulties as barriers, we recognize them as stepping stones leading us towards something greater. With God, there are no true obstacles, only opportunities to witness His power in action. So when faced with a situation that seems impossible, pause, take a deep breath, become present. In that silence, feel the presence of God. Let go of the need to control, to worry, to resist. Trust that what you seek is already unfolding, that the answer is already present. This is the power of faith in its purest form. It is not about hoping for a miracle. It is about knowing that you are already standing in the space where miracles happen. Nothing is impossible with God, not because He changes the laws of the universe, but because He is the very foundation of all existence. And when you align with that presence, you step into a life where the impossible becomes not only possible, but inevitable. Inner stillness is often misunderstood as mere silence or inactivity, but in truth, it is the most powerful state of being. It is in stillness that we access the divine, the place where all miracles originate. When we say that nothing is impossible with God, it is not a vague or distant promise. It is a reality that can be experienced when we learn to cultivate inner stillness. Most people live with constant mental noise. Thoughts race from one worry to another, from one desire to the next. There is an endless stream of inner dialogue, analyzing the past and projecting fears into the future. This mental activity creates a barrier between us and the divine presence. It is not that God is absent, but that our awareness is clouded by this noise. To experience God's power fully, we must go beyond the restless mind and enter the space of stillness. Stillness is not emptiness. It is fullness without distraction. It is the space where divine intelligence flows without resistance. It is in this state that miracles happen, not because God suddenly intervenes, but because we become receptive to what has always been available. The possibilities of God are ever present, but we often do not see them because we are too caught up in our limited thinking. Consider the moments when people experience profound breakthroughs, moments of clarity or unexpected solutions to their greatest challenges. These insights rarely come through frantic thinking. They come in moments of deep stillness, when the mind quiets and something greater emerges. It is in these moments that we allow God's power to work through us. Faith alone is not enough if it remains confined to the level of thought. Many believe in God's power but do not experience it fully because they have not created the inner space for that power to manifest. Just as a turbulent lake cannot reflect the sky clearly, a restless mind cannot perceive divine possibilities. But when the waters of the mind become still, the reflection becomes clear. We begin to see that nothing is impossible, not because we have figured out how to make it happen, but because we have surrendered to the higher intelligence that knows no limits. Inner stillness does not mean withdrawing from life or avoiding action. On the contrary, it allows us to act from a place of divine alignment. Actions taken from stillness carry the force of divine power. They are not driven by fear, doubt, or anxiety, but by wisdom, clarity, and faith. Such actions lead to outcomes that seem miraculous, not because they defy natural laws, but because they align perfectly with them. One of the greatest barriers to experiencing miracles is the need for control. Many people try to force solutions, to manipulate circumstances, or to push against life itself. This struggle comes from a lack of trust in the divine order. But when we enter stillness, we recognize that we do not have to force anything. We begin to understand that the same intelligence that governs the universe is already guiding us. When we let go of resistance and surrender to this flow, things fall into place in ways that our limited minds could never have orchestrated. To cultivate inner stillness, we must practice being present. This means setting aside time each day to withdraw from mental noise, to simply be without needing to analyze or fix anything. It means learning to trust that in stillness, we are not alone. We are in the presence of God. The more we rest in this presence, the more we realize that the impossible is only a concept created by the restless mind. In truth with God, there are no limitations, only infinite possibilities waiting to be revealed. The mind is a powerful tool, but it is also the greatest source of limitation. It constantly measures, calculates, and defines what is possible based on past experiences and learned beliefs. It operates within the boundaries of logic and reason, often dismissing anything that does not fit within its framework of understanding. However, truth is that reality is far greater than what the mind perceives. When we learn to transcend the limitations of the mind, we open ourselves to the infinite possibilities of God, where nothing is impossible. From a young age, we are conditioned to believe in limits. We are told that certain things are simply not possible, that we must accept restrictions in our abilities, our circumstances, and even our faith. Over time, these ideas shape our perception of reality. We begin to see obstacles where there are none, and we believe in impossibilities simply because we have been taught to do so. Yet these so-called limitations are not absolute truths. They are merely constructs of the conditioned mind. Consider how many times throughout history the impossible has been proven possible. There was a time when people believed that human flight was impossible, that breaking the 4-minute mile was beyond human capacity, or that diseases were incurable. Yet time and time again, these barriers were broken, not because the laws of nature changed, but because individuals dared to go beyond the limitations of the mind. They refused to accept impossibility as a fact, and instead open themselves to a greater reality. When we walk in faith, we are invited to do the same. God does not operate within the boundaries of human logic. What seems impossible to us is already accomplished in the divine realm. The question is not whether God is capable, but whether we are willing to expand our awareness beyond the restrictions of the mind. To do this, we must first recognize how the mind deceives us. The mind thrives on past experiences, drawing conclusions based on what has already happened. If something has never been done before, the mind assumes it cannot be done. If we have faced failure in the past, the mind tells us that success is unlikely. But God does not work according to past patterns. His power is not limited by human experiences. When we allow faith to guide us rather than our conditioned thoughts, we break free from the cycle of limitation. One of the greatest examples of transcending the mind's limitations is seen in acts of extraordinary faith. When people trust in God completely, they accomplish things that defy human explanation. Whether it is overcoming illness, achieving breakthroughs in their personal or professional lives, or witnessing divine intervention in ways they never imagined, these moments remind us that impossibility exists only in the mind, not in the reality of God. To experience this truth, we must practice surrendering the need for logical certainty. The mind wants proof before it believes, but faith operates differently. Faith trusts first, and only then does the evidence appear. This does not mean ignoring wisdom or common sense, but it does mean recognizing that God's ways are beyond human comprehension. When we step beyond the limitations of thought and into the vastness of divine possibility, we begin to experience life in a new way. The key is to become aware of how often the mind imposes restrictions on what we believe God can do. Every time we hear ourselves say, "This is impossible," we must pause and ask, is it truly impossible, or is it just my mind telling me so? By questioning our own assumptions, we begin to break the chains of limitation. With God, all things are possible, not because we understand how, but because His power is not bound by human reasoning. The moment we step beyond the limitations of the mind and into the realm of faith, we align with a reality where miracles are not rare occurrences, but natural expressions of divine truth. Trusting the divine flow of life is one of the most powerful realizations a person can have. It is the understanding that life is not chaotic or random, but guided by a higher intelligence that knows no limits. When we surrender to this flow, we step into a reality where obstacles dissolve, doors open effortlessly, and the impossible becomes possible. This is not mere optimism. It is a fundamental truth that can be experienced when we let go of resistance and trust in God's plan. Many people struggle because they feel the need to control everything. They analyze, plan, and worry about every detail of their lives, believing that their efforts alone determine the outcome. While there is value in preparation and action, excessive control often creates stress and fear. It causes people to resist life rather than flow with it. The truth is, the more we try to control, the more we suffer. But when we trust in the divine flow, we realize that life is unfolding exactly as it should, even when we do not yet understand the bigger picture. Consider the times in your life when things seem to fall into place effortlessly. Perhaps you met the right person at the right time, or an opportunity appeared just when you needed it. These moments are not coincidences, they are evidence of the divine flow at work. However, when we are caught in worry and doubt, we often fail to see these miracles. We become so focused on problems that we miss the subtle ways in which God is guiding us. Trusting the divine flow does not mean being passive. It does not mean we sit back and do nothing. Instead, it means aligning ourselves with God's wisdom and allowing Him to lead. When we surrender control, we are not giving up. We are stepping into a greater intelligence that sees far beyond what our minds can comprehend. This is the space where the impossible becomes possible, not through force, but through faith. Imagine a river flowing naturally toward the ocean. The water does not struggle or resist. It moves effortlessly, adapting to every twist and turn in its path. Now imagine trying to force the river to go in a different direction. The more you push against it, the more resistance you create. This is how many people live, constantly fighting against life rather than flowing with it. But when we trust in God's plan, we become like the river, moving with divine grace rather than struggling against the current. One of the greatest barriers to trusting the divine flow is fear. Fear convinces us that if we let go, things will fall apart. It tells us that if we do not take control, nothing will work out. But this is an illusion. The same intelligence that created the universe is fully capable of guiding our lives. Birds do not worry about where they will find their next meal, yet they are provided for. Flowers do not struggle to bloom, yet they unfold in perfect timing. When we trust in God, we begin to experience this same effortless unfolding in our own lives. This does not mean we will never face challenges. Challenges are part of life, but they are not meant to be obstacles. They are opportunities for growth and transformation. When we face difficulties, we have two choices. We can resist them, becoming consumed by fear and doubt, or we can surrender to the divine flow, trusting that even challenges serve a higher purpose. The moment we choose trust over fear, we open ourselves to solutions that we could not have imagined on our own. Trusting in God's plan is an act of faith, but it is also an act of wisdom. It is recognizing that life is far more intelligent than we are, and that when we surrender, we become co-creators with God, rather than trying to control everything by ourselves. In this space, miracles are not rare occurrences. They become a natural part of our existence. So when you find yourself struggling, pause, take a deep breath, and remember that you are being guided. Let go of the need to force outcomes and instead trust that God's plan is already in motion. The path may not always be clear, but that is the nature of faith. It walks forward even in uncertainty, knowing that with God nothing is impossible. In the end, the truth remains clear. Nothing is impossible with God. Not because of wishful thinking, but because divine power operates beyond the limits of the human mind. When we become fully present in faith, cultivate inner stillness, transcend conditioned thoughts, and trust the divine flow of life, we open ourselves to a reality where impossibility does not exist. Life does not have to be a constant struggle. The same presence that created the universe is guiding each of us, working in ways beyond our understanding. Our task is not to force outcomes, but to surrender, align, and trust. When we let go of resistance and embrace the infinite possibilities of God, we step into a life of miracles, not as rare events, but as a natural expression of divine truth. So as you move forward, remember, whenever doubt, fear, or limitation arises, pause, become still. In that silence, feel the presence of God. Trust that His power is already at work, shaping a path greater than anything you could imagine. The impossible is only an illusion of the mind, but with God, all things are truly possible. Thank you